Hello everyone, we are going to create a guess the number game here where the computer tries to guess your number. So I'm going to create a new project in Unity Hub. It's going to be a Universal 2D project. I'm going to call it Guess the Number. And it's important to see where you are actually saving the project so you know where to find it in the future. I'll click Create Project and off we go. So the way this game's going to work is you will think of a number, the computer will try to guess it between 1 and 1,000, and you tell it if it's higher or lower, and it keeps going until the computer gets it right. So the computer will always win. We'll use the up key to indicate the number is higher, down, lower, and enter if the computer gets it correct. All right, so with my project open, you can see there's a couple of errors down here. This could sometimes happen with a new Unity project on a new system, but it's a pretty easy fix. You can go to the window menu and go to Package Manager and find the Unity version control package and remove it. I think it's going to change up some things. And from there, we can close the project. And I'm going to go to where the project is saved, which is why I told you to check that earlier. So I'm going to go to guess the number. I'm going to delete the entire library folder and then reopen the project. That will recreate the library folder and should get rid of the errors if you had errors. If you didn't have errors, then you can skip all that. All right, we're back up and running and we have no errors, which is fantastic. All right, so I'm going to go and open or rename my sample scene. So down here in the assets folder, we have a scenes folder. Every Unity project starts with a scene. So I'm going to rename this to game. Double click it to open it. And I want to create a new script here. Script is where the code is going to reside that runs aspects of our game. So I'm going to go back to the main assets folder. I'm going to right click here, choose create. And for me, it says C# script. You might have a slightly different layout. You might have to go to a create menu and then choose scripting and then mono behavior script. For me, it's just C# script. And I'm going to call this number guesser. So in Unity, a script needs to be attached to something in order for it to run. So first, this is a text-based game that we're doing right now. We'll eventually make a visual version of it. So I don't need the main camera or this global light. So I'm going to delete those two things. I'm now going to right click in here and choose create empty to create an empty game object that I'm just going to call game. So in most games, you're going to have lots of game objects, and here we just have the one, which will run our game, and I want to add the script to it. So I can either click add component to add it, or I can just drag and drop the script over here. And I now want to double click on my script to open it in Visual Studio. I have a version of Visual Studio called Visual Studio Code, which you could install if you want, but Unity comes with just a regular version, or Visual Studio Community, I think is what it's called. But we're gonna start by writing some code in this start method. So the start method runs before the first frame updates. So when your object is first created, our object just starts in the scene, then any code you put in start will run. So I'm just going to print some messages. I'm going to say, welcome to the Number Guesser game. It's giving me some suggestions here. I'm going to ignore some of them. I want to say, pick a number in your head. So now I want to add some variables to my code. Variables can store data that you can use within your program. And these variables are going to be integers, meaning they can store numbers that don't have decimal places. So I'm going to create a max equal to 1,000, a min equal to 1. So the range is between 1 and 1,000. I'm going to create a count, which will count how many guesses the computer takes. I'm going to create a guess set equal to 0. This will be the guess the computer takes. So now I want to add a line to start. I'll say pick a number between, and give me a suggestion that I will use, min and max. So the pluses we're using here, this is concatenating these things together. So we have a string of text here. We join it, we concatenate it with our min number, so 1. We join that with the word and. Then we join that with the word max. And then I'll actually make this 3 dots at the end. And you may notice that there's these what are called curly brackets here, left and right curly brackets. This indicates where a method begins. So our start method begins here. Our start method ends here. So outside this curly bracket for start, we are going to create our own method. I'm going to say void new guess, then parentheses and the pair of curly brackets. It's giving me some suggestions, which I will ignore. So void means the method doesn't return any answer. It just does something. And what this method's going to do is it's going to take a guess. I'm going to say guess equals random.range. And the range will be between our min and our max. And if you hover over methods, you can see what they do. So it says it returns a random int within min inclusive and max exclusive. So that means it does not include our second number here. So I do want it to include 1,000, so I'm going to put a +1 here to make sure it actually includes that 1,000. Otherwise, the biggest number it could make is 999. And then I'll print, is the number higher? I'll indicate we want an up arrow if it's higher, or lower, down arrow, than guess. And then after the question mark here, if I got it right, press enter. So now this new guess method, you can see it's kind of grayed out, which means it's never been used. You can see count has the same issue up here. It's never been used. So that's not a problem with your code, but it's just a warning saying, hey, did you mean to use this? And we did. We want to call new guess at the end of start. So at the end of start, we have new guess, parentheses, semicolon. That calls the new guess method to run the code within it. So now we need to implement all of this stuff. We want the up arrow to indicate that the correct number is higher, down arrow means it's lower, enter means we got it correct. And something to check before you do this is the input handling Unity is using. If you go to the edit menu, back in Unity, I'm in Visual Studio right now, Unity is going to refresh a little bit because you made changes to the script. So I'm going to go to the edit menu, I'm going to go to project settings, and I want to go under the player settings and then other settings under player. And I will eventually find the active input handling. There are three options for this: input manager, which is the old system, input system package, which is the new system, or both lets you use both systems. So I'm already under input manager old. You can either use that or you can use both. The new system is better because it's more compatible with game controllers and things like that, but we won't be using game controllers in this class, so the old system is just fine. So if you have to change the setting here, which you probably will have to, because I believe it defaults to the new package, then you'll just have to restart Unity after you make that change. All right, and then after doing that, we'll be back in the code, and we want to call the, we want to edit the update method. The update method runs for every frame of animation, so it runs a lot. If your game is running at 60 frames per second, update runs 60 times every second. So we're going to create an if statement here to check to see if the up arrow key is being pressed down. And I actually get a very good suggestion this time around for the code, so I'm going to accept it. So input get key down. This doesn't mean the down arrow key, it means is this key being pressed down? If it is, specifically if the up arrow is, we want to change our minimum. So if we're saying to the computer, hey, the correct number is bigger than the number you guessed, then we want the minimum to change to the number the computer guessed. And we want count to go up by 1. And then we call new guess again. For the down arrow, if that's being pressed down, we want to change the maximum because we're telling the computer the maximum number is smaller, or the correct number is smaller than what you guessed. So we change the maximum and increase count by 1. So count plus plus basically means increase this variable count by 1. And then we call new guess again. And then if we press enter or return, I'm going to change this a bit. I'm going to say silly human. I guess your number in however many tries. And then this enabled equals false. This disables the script so you can't take any further guesses. That's not necessary, but it's a nice little addition there. Right, so now if I go back to Unity, first of all, you do want to make sure your script is saved. So I'm using Visual Studio Code and I have autosave turned on. But if you don't have autosave turned on, make sure you save. You'll see a dot up here where the script file name is that would indicate it hasn't been saved. So I'll switch back to Unity. It's going to reload my script. And I'm going to run the game. And nothing's happening. But this is a text-based game, so we don't have the camera. The text is going to appear in the console. So I come over here and we see all of my text. And the computer guessed 862. It's random, so you'll have a different number most likely. But let's say my number is 555. I want to press down because the correct number is less than this. Okay, that does not do anything. You need to click in the game tab in where your game actually appears. That's where it will register keyboard input. So I click in here, and now I can press down, and now it guessed 478. And now I press up because the correct number is 555, guess 678, down again, 584, down again, 559, getting closer, down, 514, up, 558, down, 518, up, 549, up, 553, up, 556, so close, down, 554, up, 555, and now I press enter, and it gives the message at the end saying it took 13 tries. So we'll be using some of the code from this version of Number Guesser in a visual version of the game, but this was just to give you an idea of how Unity works, how some of the basic scripting works in Unity. And you want to make sure your program isn't running anymore. I can click the play button here to stop it. And that is that.